Ambassador Dubaniowski, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure, absolutely mine. Thank you for having me.
Poland is next door to Ukraine, and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is more than 14 months right now. It has been going on for more than 14 months. Ambassador Dubaniowski, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure, absolutely mine. Thank you for having me.
Poland is next door to Ukraine, and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is more than 14 months right now. It has been going on for more than 14 months. What's the stake so far for Poland?
I have to say, and let me start by saying that it's already today 1 year and 2 months, as you just mentioned, 14 months since Russia invaded Ukraine. And of course, it's a very sad moment, but at the same time, it also shows the huge Putin's miscalculations, because he expected probably the quick victory within a week or two, and that didn't happen, simple like that. Just on the contrary, Ukrainians are very brave, very heroic. They not only defend themselves very efficiently and effectively, but they also counterattack, and they are determined. They are really determined because they know what they are fighting for. They are fighting for their homeland, their families, their friends. They are fighting for universal values, and they are simply fighting for their freedom. So this is something I had to say at the beginning, because we have to keep in mind, definitely different story than we expected at the beginning, and many people expect at the beginning. And currently in Poland, of course, during these 14 months, the situation had been changed dramatically. Dramatically in a sense that currently, practically, we are sort of the frontline country as a next-door neighbor to Ukraine. So we also have to remember that more or less 10 million of refugees fled Ukraine through Poland, or some of them to Poland. So basically, nearly 3 million of refugees decided to stay in Poland. And so basically, in Poland, you can hear the Ukrainian language wherever you are. It could be heard on the streets, in the shops, in hospitals, and some other places. So this is the situation, how it looks like right now. And of course, I think this may be the most important, I should say at the beginning, that we as Poles, we are always care for our friends, and in particular, friends in need. It's not just my opinion, it's the opinion which is being shared by many people, that Poland is being considered as the largest humanitarian NGO in the world, because the largest number of refugees are being in Poland currently.
So you mean 10 million of Ukrainians passed through Poland?
Yeah, 10 million passed through Poland,
yeah.
And close to 3 million decide to stay in Poland. And, surprise, surprise, because all these between 2 and 3 millions, we stay in Poland without single refugee camps. So all of them are being taken care of by Polish families. Polish citizens decided to share their homes with Ukrainian refugees. So basically, they are being treated as a part of our society.
So more or less, Ukrainian people has become like family members of Polish families right now?
Definitely more than less. Definitely not just more than less. Definitely more than less. They are simply being treated as friends, as family members. They are staying at our homes with the Polish families. So they are working with in Polish institutions. So there is not a surprise, because I have to say that right now, if you are going to visiting Poland, you feel such a great spirit of solidarity.
Has it been like that for the past 14 months, or the spirit was high in the beginning because you could see how difficult it was for Ukrainians? But what's the situation right now among Polish people?
To be completely honest, I think that with regard to the spirit, with regard to our enthusiasm towards Ukrainians, it's definitely more or less on the same level as it was at the beginning. Because we know, I mean, we Poles, we know in Poland that this extremely important situation, not only for Ukraine, but for Poland as well. because you never know whether the Ukraine would have been the only target, or maybe the next target after Ukraine would have been Poland, because somehow all these crazy Russian ideas or the crazy Mr. Putin's ideas are hardly predictable. So definitely enthusiasm is still there, and definitely I would say almost 100% of society, according to last research which had been done, it was 80% of Poles who are involved in all the activities which are assisting Ukrainians and Ukrainian refugees and are something to do with Ukraine.
And so far, what's the military support you have provided for Ukraine? Because we know that Poland is at the forefront of providing military support.
Yeah, definitely. We are not only on the forefront, but we are also the one who usually initiated this military support as well. So we were the first one to deliver the fighter jets to Ukraine, and then actually it is also sort of our success because some other European countries decided to follow our decision, so they provided the fighter jets as well. We also decided to provide to Ukrainians Leopard tanks, which is quite important, and we always try to find sort of the pro-Ukrainian coalition, all the European and not only European countries, which will be interested in providing some military equipment and ammunition to Ukraine, because this is something which Ukraine really needs.
So far, it's been said that because of the US and Western allies that make this war prolonged, then it actually should happen. What's your take?
Not at all. Not at all. Let's start from the beginning. So in my opinion, the first one who is responsible, the only one who is responsible for the war is, of course, President Putin and all these Russian generals. So they are the one. They initiated the invasion and they try to do everything to still going on. And of course, US, NATO, European Union, all these countries, all this organization as well, understood relatively quickly what sort of danger could have been for the world, for the stability, for the peace process. So definitely all these players decided as soon as possible to organize the assistance for Ukraine, including the military assistance. And of course, it's not surprising. The main role is being played by Americans, because of course they are global leader and they were the fastest in delivering all this military assistance. But of course, one of the key players is also Poland, because basically without us, without Poland, it wouldn't be hardly possible to provide any assistance to Ukraine. So of course, I believe that currently there is a general understanding among all these countries, among the Western world, among the European Union as well, that we need to support Ukraine as much as possible because this is the only chance to end this war.
But to compare conflict in Ukraine right now between Russia and Ukraine and 2014 with what happened in Crimea, the situation seems different and EU stance on the issue seems very different, and with the US role in the equation is also different.
Lesson has been learned by European countries. Lesson learned has been learned by international community. Somehow we understood very quickly the mistake had been made in 2014 and not now. So we have to do everything to avoid this situation which has happened in 2014 when it came to the annexation of Crimea. So we have to do everything to stop this Russian invasion. So I believe that from every single angle, from every single perspective, either from the European or from the American, that is clear that it's a different story and it's the really real. It could be the real danger for the world if we allow somehow Russian to continue this this invasion. And I hope it will not going to happen.
How far does Poland plan to go with this war?
We will stand with Ukraine as long as it will be needed. And I believe it's not only our position, it's the position of the whole European Union, it's position of the whole Western world, and it's position of NATO, and it's position of America and Canada as well, for example. I hope, but it's only my hope, that it will be not that long. But realistically, we are talking rather about not a couple of months. We have to be prepared, and we are prepared. And we do everything we can that Ukraine will be prepared as well.
How does the war will come to an end? What's your take?
Extremely good question. Extremely complicated one, because there is not the simple solution. First and foremost, I believe that sooner or later there are two possibilities. The first one, Ukraine will win the war. The second one, the negotiation will start, but the negotiation without any preconditions from the Russian side. If the negotiation will start, so sooner or later, as usually in the history, as usually in the past, sort of the agreements could have been reached. But as I mentioned, without any precondition, and of course, one of the most important issues that if the peace agreement will be reached, it has to be reached on such a basis that Ukraine will still be in its shape with the borders as before the invasion. So all this territory which currently are being occupied or partly occupied by Russia has to be turned to Ukraine, and Ukraine has to be precisely as it was before.
The first option, you say Ukraine wins the war. Does it mean that NATO will go along full-fledged in military support and help in attacking Russia as well?
No, I don't think that NATO will attacking Russia. That's probably not going to happen. And never ever had been mentioned like this. But many NATO members and allies, they try to do everything they can to support Ukraine with all this military equipment and other sort of assistance. And this is something what Ukraine truly needs.
How do you see the role of China and Brazil? They are trying to mediate the situation. How do you see the potential of China or Brazil being mediator in this conflict?
I would say it's always very positive if you can find the way to be the negotiator, the way to be mediator. But of course, it's too early to say that this sort of mediation or potential negotiation would have been the successful one. So of course, the more countries are interested in taking the role of mediator, the better. But of course, it has to be serious approach, serious mediation, and as I mentioned earlier, without any preconditions. Because so far, what we've been told frequently, that one of the preconditions from the Russian side is that all these territories which had been occupied by Russia has to be either became Russian or independent. Absolutely is not accepted and not acceptable by any single politician from Ukraine, by any single politician from European Union, and by any single politician from the Western world. Because without any precondition, negotiation could have been. But if there's any precondition like this, probably it will be extremely difficult, if not impossible.
It's more than a year that the conflict between Russia and Ukraine is on the world spotlight, and you are ambassador of Poland to Thailand, and you must have seen the sentiment among Southeast Asia countries and leaders in this region. What the message would you like to tell Thai people regarding the situation?
In that regard, I believe that my message would have been very, very simple. This one symbolic sentence, which had been repeated several times, but I think it's worth repeating. So the sentence sounds like, if Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. But if Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine. And this is something that everyone should really try to understand, because actually there's no symmetry in this war. There's only one country which had been invaded, and the another country which is an aggressor. So we have to remember, if Russia stops fighting, there will be no war. If Ukraine stops fighting, there will be no Ukraine. So there's huge difference. So this is something I believe that our friends, our colleagues from Thailand, from ASEAN, from Asia, they should keep in mind, because this is the huge difference. So this is one of the reasons that we should all together, as a sign of solidarity, to do everything we can to show our solidarity with Ukraine, to support Ukraine, to assist Ukraine, and at the same time, we also try to do everything we can to isolate Russia, because honestly, symbols also matter. Symbols also matter, so everyone should be fully aware that there's one aggressor, one invader only. So isolation of Russia, in my opinion, makes sense.
You have been working in Thailand for several years, but in the past 14 months, the issue of Ukraine and Russia must have taken most of your time.
Absolutely.
In your mission. What's your plan for your next move in order to carry on the mission in Thailand?
Of course, in a current situation, it is no surprise, it's not a wonder that the Ukraine situation is a priority, not only for me, but for every single Polish diplomat around the world. Because the situation in Ukraine is the one which affects Poland so much. So of course, we always try to convince our colleagues whenever we are that this is one of the most important issues, not the European only. In fact, it's a global issue. It has its consequences for supply chains, for the supply, for energy supply, for some other serious issues. So therefore, this is important that even in Asia, which is not direct neighbor to Ukraine here in Southeast Asia, but we should also remember that the consequences are being visible here in Southeast Asia as well. So definitely this is one of the plans. And of course, on the other hand, what is also important, we always try to keep our trade relation going, because we believe that it's also important that we have to, I mean by we we in Europe, we in Poland, and also we in Thailand. We have to make sure that our economies, they will be in an absolutely extremely good shape, they will be very healthy, and we will be able to provide the support to all the countries in need. And currently, the country which needs our support the most is definitely Ukraine.
Ambassador, thank you very much for joining me.